Hi, Ronika. Good morning to you.
Good
How are you?
morning. How are you? Very happy to be here.
Thank you so much. I'm doing very well. I'd like to apologize. Today was a little bit of a rush for me, but we're here now. My name is. Oh, we're here. We're here. I'd like to introduce myself formally to you and to all of our listeners today. My name is Nicolette. I am the creator for the podcast titled "You're Worthless." Read that again. The juxtaposition of your very soul. First off, I'd like to say again, thank you very much for reaching out to me and for saying yes to be interviewed today. When I read your profile, oh, wow. Definitely, I need to get you on. I think if not my listeners, I could learn so much from you. Um, before we go into the serious, the business side of things, let me introduce yourself to our listeners today, and then we can get in right into it. So, hello everyone. We have Ronika Merl here with us. Ronika is an award-winning screenwriter. She also directs and runs the Wicklow Stories Film Festival, having placed highly in both the Academy Nicole Fellowship as well as the Austin Film Festival in 2019. She has since expanded her slate to contain more than 22 feature-length scripts. She has lectured at Griffith College in Dublin, Ireland, and has given multiple workshops in Ireland and the UK. Her latest work, Matriarchy, is a film and TV adaptation of Mary Mackey's best-selling novel series Earth Song, which is being produced by Chainsaw Europe. In addition to this, she is the artistic director of the Wicklow Stories Film Festival, which was launched in 2022 and was funded and supported by Creative Ireland. Her poetry collections, I Love You, Dave Taylor, and Joy Clings, are available on Amazon.com with her new book, She, coming out in April 2024. She has consulted on projects in the US, UK, South Africa, and Australia. Now, forgive me, there are so many jargons there. I hope I
Yeah.
pronounce
No,
them
absolutely,
correctly.
absolutely. It's a bit of a long CV. I don't know how to shorten it down.
No, don't. I mean, this is impressive. I'm not in the media industry, but I know this is something really, really important to you and your work.
Yeah.
So, can you share with us first? I'd like to take our listeners a trip down memory lane. What was it like growing up as a Ronnie Cobb?
Goodness. I grew up in quite a few different worlds. I grew up mainly, well, the first few years of my life I spent living in a very secluded, kind of cut off mountain tribe in India, spending my days, herding goats and milking livestock and cutting grass on the mountains with a sickle, with no TV, no running water, no plumbing, living in a clay house. That was one world. And then we moved to Austria. So my dad's Indian, my mom's Austrian. And then we moved to Austria with my mother. And I lived a quite comfortable, let's say, upbringing. Family, my mother's side, the family on my mother's side is quite wealthy and quite comfortable. So I spent my summers on a vineyard and my winters on a sheep farm on the Czech border. So that was, quite the flip to kind of move from a very kind of 15th century lifestyle to a comfortable lifestyle in Europe. And then when I was kind of growing up, when I was 15, 16, I fell in with a quite bad crowd, let's say, and I went into prostitution for 4 years when I was 16, and quite horrendous, stuff happened there. And then I moved to Ireland when I was 20, had two beautiful children, worked corporate jobs, worked, did all the kind of stuff that you're supposed to do, lived in suburbia, raised children. And then I decided that that wasn't really it for me. So I decided that I was going to fulfill my kind of lifelong dream of going into film and becoming, actually stepping into being a writer. I'd always been a writer, but stepping into that and really kind of making a go for it. And I did that about, like 5 years ago now when I was 28, and I quit my job when I was 30 and have been kind of doing that ever since. So it's quite the journey. This is quite a long road, in the last 3 decades. So yeah, that's what it was really. It's a long journey.
So many turning
Yeah.
points. I am Wow. Okay. Well, okay. Wait. How do we start? Let's see. Okay. Can you share with us how did you break into becoming an artist, into the media industry? Like,
Okay. That,
how'd
yeah,
you make the switch? Like,
yeah.
it's a huge switch.
It is. And I always said that I was going to. It was really important for me. I always said that this was something that I was going to end up doing because, well, if you've gone through really difficult times in your life, you have to feel like, or at least for me, it was always the case. I had to feel like that there was a purpose for all the hardship. If all the hardship didn't lead into something, then what was it all for? Um, and so I was kind of like I was unhappy in my relationship with my ex, father of my children. I was unhappy with my career. I was unhappy with the place I was living in. Um, I was just so miserable all the time. You know the way you start daydreaming when you're miserable and you start kind of wishing yourself away. And I did that, and whenever I did that, I always ended up dreaming of, walking onto a film set or just getting to sit down and write the whole day. And wouldn't it be amazing if that was my job? Wouldn't it be amazing if that was what I was able to do with my day? And so I started screenwriting. I had been working on a novel, and failing miserably, just absolutely failing at it. I was just so bad. And that failure kind of, because I was sitting in front of this pile of like writing that I had done, and all of it was terrible. All of it was just awful. And I sat in front of it and I was like, I just want this to be made into a movie. And then I thought, right, I should just write the screenplay. Maybe that's easier. And turns out it's a lot easier. Or at least for me, all of a sudden it had clicked and I had found my medium. I'd really connected to writing a screenplay. For me is the form of expression that comes easiest to me. So I wrote the screenplay and it was very bad. And then I wrote another one and that was very good. And then I wrote another one and that was very good. When the time then came for me to make the switch, so that was around age 28. And I always said, I want to start this new life by the time I'm 30. And then I was 29, and then I was 29 and a half, and then I was like 3 days away from my 30th birthday, and I was still working a corporate job, and I was still like no closer to realizing my dream than I had been 2 years early. And I was like, but I was going to do this when I'm 30. And then I was 30. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm 30 now. And then my corporate job, actually, this was in the middle of the pandemic. My corporate job actually said, you're either going to have to move to the Netherlands or we're going to have to like not continue.
Let you go.
Yeah. And I said, bye. So
That was the key. That was the
yes,
cue from the universe. Okay,
perfect.
this is it.
Let's do it. And
It's
30 days,
yeah.
30 days after my 30th birthday, I quit my corporate job and haven't looked back since. And immediately the commission started coming in. And I believe, exactly like you said, I really believe it was a case of the universe had been kind of waiting for me to just jump. And when I finally did jump, everything was there waiting for me, just ready. So it's a lot of work. Like what we always underestimate about starting a career in the arts, because it's our passion and because it's what we love to do. People always think it's not work then, because you're just doing whatever you want to do and you just get to sit around and write all day. So that's not work. It's work. It's a lot of work. Like I have 80-hour weeks, like easily. It's a lot of work. You have to stay on top of your game. You have to market yourself. You have to continuously reach out to people. You have to network. It's work. It's a real job, which a lot of people don't kind of stepping into your kind of dream job means you're going to work more, not less. And that's the lesson I learned. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I can resonate because for me, the universe kind of nudged me, or rather, not nudge, kick me in the butt when after pandemic, I went into, well, my journey was I got a divorce, 19. So I was like, okay, let me put that aside, put that love department aside, and then put all my focus
Yeah.
on work.
Yeah.
Because since this is what I do best, this is where I excel in. And then pandemic happened and everybody was adapting into the online work. So, and I had my burnout during that time, but I didn't know it was burnout. I thought that I was really behind
Mhm.
things, but I wasn't eating well, back to back meetings, and I thought it was normal. And I thought to myself, like, okay, perhaps this is what online should, wait, how does it, work from home should
Mhm.
be until I think 2020, mid of 2021, where I had just I was on the brink of not clinically diagnosed with depression,
Yeah.
but I could feel like my
Yeah.
head was like pounding until I decided to take a step back. I was so ready to throw my resignation letter to my boss, but decided to, take a sabbatical instead while I figure out what to do next. So I did it. And then I joined another company. But again, it wasn't because I had set with myself about what is it that I want to do next as the second act. I went and looked for that job because of that fear of I'm not going to be able to support myself. So I would say I settled. It was still a good one. I could still pay my bills, and again, it was a better offer. But then it wasn't really sitting with me until the company again had a restructuring, and I was let go. So it was like time to really, yeah.
Yeah.
And in between that, when I joined that company, it was totally different than what I was doing. But it gave me time where to say, when I got in, it was like, okay, I know that I'm not gonna stay here for long. But I didn't know what to do because I couldn't let go because the job was paying me quite well. And then what is it I want to do next? So in between, I found something which is hypnotherapy, and well, to my surprise, podcasting. I love this.
Yeah.
It's a lot of
It's
work.
a
I
lot of work,
can I can
but
it's a lot of work. Like, yeah, but um I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, even though today, like, okay, for our listeners, like, before the interview, I was actually late to the interview, and I had to text Ronika and tell her that, I
yeah.
missed. I looked, yeah,
Yeah.
the timing was wrong. Even though I told you I have you on my calendar, so but then I gotta do this. It's it's truly different.
Yeah.
Pursuing your passion,
Yeah,
yeah,
when we are kind of hit in the face with like a really kind of strong moment of I'm in the wrong place, I shouldn't be here, this is not what I want to do with my life. That kind of reset and that kind of like really big restructuring. It's a good thing when that happens. It didn't feel like a good thing in the moment. Like when you were
yeah,
really, really down and
yeah.
when you were
Because
feeling
why
awful.
me?
Why
You'll
you?
be
Why
like,
can't I
why
just
me?
be happy
Yeah.
with what I have? Why am I so depressed? Why am I having to go through this like really dark night of the soul? Yeah, because you
My
have
God,
to.
Ronica, you're
Yeah,
hitting everything.
because it's true.
Oh my God.
Because when we do that, it's your whole body and your soul and your heart telling you that you could do that. There's a different thing for you out there. You're in the wrong place. Um, And that's a really, really powerful thing. And we need to listen to those things because we're just going to be so much more miserable when we don't listen to those kind of big warning lights and big kind of call to action that we all get. Everybody gets them at some point in life. And we get them again and again and again. And to be open to change and to be welcoming and to be curious. like to be curious about what's around the corner and to be curious about what's going to happen next without fear and without kind of trepidation about, oh, I'm not good enough for this or I'm not strong enough to make this change. Of course you are. It's going to be hard,
Yeah.
but of course you are. So, yeah, it's a good thing that that happened to you. I mean,
Uh-huh.
in
Yeah.
retrospect, probably.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
retrospect, right? Yeah, because I felt like when I got the news, I felt targeted, I felt
Yeah.
attacked because it must be, they are ganging up on me,
Yeah. Yeah.
but then in hindsight, deep down, like, Nick, you're not meant to stay here.
Yeah.
You don't click with them.
Exactly.
Yeah, you earn, yes, you earn, but then you know it damn well. You don't, yeah.
Yeah.
So move,
Move
or I'll
on,
move
move
you,
on.
says the
Exactly,
universe.
exactly. The universe, it always kind of it slaps you in the face. It tries with like gentle in
Oh my
for
God.
as long as it
Yeah,
can, and then it's just like, "Do you know what? I'm gonna have to kick this girl in the butt because yeah, she needs to go."
exactly. She needs to go. Yeah, she needs to go.
Yeah, that's what it's like. Yeah,
I love it so much, Ronika, for your story.
no problem.
Ooh. Okay, so we're gonna go into the experience of sexual violence
Mhm.
and sexual
Yeah,
abuse.
yeah.
Do you mind sharing
No, I
what was it? Hi, I'm Nick Nieras, your host of the Your Wordless podcast. Now, if these real raw stories hit home, don't wait. Please follow, like, and subscribe my Spotify and YouTube. For bite-sized inspirational reels, follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Don't wait. Your transformation starts today. Thank you, and bye for now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always talk about this and trigger warning for all sorts of like really horrendous stuff. So if any of your listeners aren't comfortable listening to this, then maybe they need to skip just this part. But so a lot of my work centers around this. I work with survivors of sexual abuse kind of offline. I have a charity that I work with here in Ireland called Saoirse, who run women's refuges. I help them out and I work with the women who go through that. So that's a lot of my work is centered around this because one of the reasons I do is because I am a storyteller. I'm a writer. I speak. That's what I do. I use words to make sense of the work. And so I feel it's almost a duty to me to speak about it because a lot of people, after they've gone through something like that, do not have the ability, do not have the capacity, and don't feel like they can speak about it. So those of us who can, sure. So that's kind of my preamble to everything. So sexual abuse for me is something that I have lived with all my life. So my parents, both my parents, sexually abused me from when I was a very small child. So I don't remember how far back it goes, but presumably since I was, a toddler, a baby. Um, so when we grow up in an environment in which your body is not, you don't have control over what happens to your own body, that's a very damaging thing, right? But what it can lead to is that we don't feel like we have control over anything. We don't feel like we have control over our lives. We don't feel like we have control over, we don't get to set boundaries because you're not allowed to, because your very skin, your very actual self isn't under your control. So when we experience especially sexual violence, but violence in general, but especially sexual violence or sexual abuse, to rebuild your sense of self can be one of the biggest challenges. To rebuild the understanding that you are a fully kind of independent, autonomous human being with the ability to say no. Like relearning to say no is a difficult thing. So for example, I always use this story as an example, um, just because it showcases so specifically what the consequences of experiencing something like that can be. When I was in my early 20s, I was with a really like he's the father of my children, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. And we were just kind of starting out in our relationship, and I had just come out of prostitution, obviously, and I had spent my first 22 years of life quite with a lot of abuse and with a lot of kind of really horrendous stuff. And he was in the mood for sex and I was not on that particular evening, right? So he kind of like made the moves and he kind of like started, yeah, I'm getting busy. And
Yeah,
he was, which is the normal thing to do in a healthy relationship, right? That's like, hey, do you want to get busy? Um,
that's right.
and I, for some reason, I don't know, had I a long day at work or whatever, I was not in the mood. So I was like, please, I'm just not in the mood. And he was like, yeah, cool, fine. And he kind of like sat back down on the couch and like turned the TV on. And he was just sitting there and he was watching TV and he was perfectly like he didn't feel rejected or anything. It's a normal thing.
Wow.
It's a completely normal thing.
Ye-
But I was sitting there with like my whole being. I was like cramping up and I was sweating and I was like terrified of what I had just done. I was absolutely terrified of what I had just done to this man, right? I said no to him. I said no to sex. Like, what? That's not allowed. That's not allowed, is what my brain kept telling me was like, how dare you? Like, this man loves you, right? He wants something from you. How dare you say no to him? How dare you think of yourself as this? Who the fuck? Sorry, but I hope you can curse here.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
who
yeah.
the fuck do you
That's
think
like,
you are? Right? Who do you think you are saying no? Like, how arrogant are you? How full of yourself are you, bitch, for saying no? Like, that's what was going on inside my head for like hours and hours and hours after. And yeah, hours. And I was like, I was sitting there and I was like, I was starting to like feel myself starting to cry. And he kind of noticed that something was off and he was like, what's wrong? Like, this was like half an hour, 40 minutes after. So for him, it was already gone out of his head. He was like, yeah, I'm not getting late tonight, whatever. Like, who cares?
yeah.
But for me, I had been sitting there for like 40, 45 minutes with like this like complete kind of panic inside myself of like, oh my God, I set a boundary. This is not allowed. Right. And he was like, what's going on? And I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Of course we can have sex. Like, of course, whatever you want to do. I, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to reject you. I didn't mean to say no to you. I'm so sorry that I did this to you. And he was like, what? What? Talking about? Like, what are you talking about? Not he couldn't
Hmm.
even fathom
He couldn't, yeah, fathom.
that was the thing, right? But to me it was. And all of a sudden when he did this really healthy thing of like explaining to me that it's okay to say no and it's okay to not do anything that your partner wants you to do or anybody else wants you to do, really. Like, if a stranger on the street had walked up to me and told me to jump, I would have jumped because, like, of course, somebody else wants something from me. Of course, I'm going to do it because that's what I'm here for. That is my purpose in life, is to serve others. And no, I mean, yes, my purpose in life is to serve others. My purpose in life is to help other people and love other people. And yes, my purpose in life is to serve others, but not in that way. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's that is the one story I always point to and kind of use as like an example and a pinpoint of what the consequences are of experiencing sexual violence. It is a complete loss of self. You do not feel like you are allowed to be in control over your own self. And to learn that again, that's the process. To relearn that you get to set boundaries and that you get to design your life in exactly the way you want to do. And that has taken me another decade. Like, this incident would have been about a decade ago. And I'm still learning that lesson. I'm still learning that lesson again and again and again, that I am allowed to, like, when I get depressed or when I get re-traumatized or triggered or whatever, um, I have to actively remind myself that I am in charge of what happens. I'm in charge of what happens to my body. I'm in charge of what happens in my life. I'm in charge of what happens in my bank account. I'm in control. The difficult thing. That's the difficult lesson that we all have to learn again.
Wow. And it's taken you
Yeah.
a decade.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. It takes a
Wow. Well,
lifetime to kind of overcome that.
yeah. But then once you overcome that one time,
Mm.
and then it shifted, I'm sure it shifted your
Yeah.
perspective and it shifted like the way you see people. And then I don't know if you also think that, oh, if I were to feel like this in this very moment, that I know there must have been thousands, if not millions of people who actually feel the same way.
Exactly.
Maybe the trigger points are different,
Yeah.
but they do feel like this too, which is completely normal for a couple. One of them is not in the mood to say, okay, I'm not really in the mood for it now, maybe later, but that you, because of what you went through and you held on to it, and you were expecting him to maybe force, I
Yes.
don't know,
Yes,
right? Like,
I was
yeah, force it
wholeheartedly
on you,
expect
right?
him not to
Yeah,
accept my no. I was
exactly.
expecting him to.
And then guilt tripping
Yeah,
you
that's what
into
you
like,
expect.
yeah,
Yeah, because that's what I had experienced before, and that's what I had been living with all my life. So when he did the healthy thing, that's another thing is when we go through really traumatic events, and then we come across people who are healthy. We don't recognize that
yeah,
behavior. We don't understand. We don't know
we do,
what goes on because they're so healthy and they're doing the healthy thing, and but the healthy thing is so strange to you.
yeah,
It's such a strange thing. So there's a lot of work that needs to go into healing yourself, and it's a long process that takes, years and years and decades, depending on, how bad it was. And I know I'm still in that process. I definitely know I'm still in that process. Yeah.
what would you say have helped you on your journey to healing yourself from the
The one thing I always say
triggers?
well, therapy, obviously therapy. You cannot face this alone. You cannot get through this alone. You need help. You need professional to look after you. But what I also say is education. I have been very privileged. I was very, very lucky to have very good schooling, to have great teachers, to have, a really thorough understanding of what was happening to me psychologically. So I could analyze this stuff that was happening. I could educate myself about psychology and philosophy, and I had resources to be able to see the inside of my brain a little bit better. So education, which is one of the reasons I'm talking to you right now, because if you don't understand if you can't analyze what's going on with you because you don't have the resources to be able to understand, you cannot get better. You need to be able to understand what's going on and then you can get better. So education, I think, was the most important kind of factor in me being able to get through, just because without it, I would have fallen into the trap of being even more vulnerable and not having, yeah, literally not having the resources that I needed to get through. So therapy and education it was really the thing that got me through.
And I want to thank you for sharing your story so
Sure.
openly and so candidly to me. We need more people like yourself. So when they hear this, I don't know, this year or next year, whenever they come across, they'll say, okay, somebody else out there has actually, spoken up
Yeah.
and shared their story. Maybe it's time for me too. And it's okay if I've experienced such traumatic things. It's okay to rise again and do pivot in life. You're not worthless.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the things that,
That's it. Like
yeah,
when we
that's it.
when
Yeah,
we make the decision to come through it,
yeah,
it's a decision. It's real, like it's a decision point that you have to decide again and again to get up. You have to decide again and again and again to find your way all the way to acceptance. Because so when we talk about the 5 stages of grief, right? That doesn't just happen when we lose someone. That happens every time there is a loss within you, whether it's the loss of a job, whether it's the loss of a relationship, whether it's the loss of a friendship, whether it's the loss of your favorite, I don't know, your favorite pillow or whatever. I don't know. Every time we lose something, and we lose something all the time. That's life. It's just life. But it's when we get stuck on anger, or when we get stuck on depression, or when we get stuck on bargaining, thinking, oh, if I just work hard enough, then this person won't leave me.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Right? No, you're going to work your way through, all the way through to acceptance every time. And the older we get, the more experience, the more loss and the more kind of heartache and life that we've experienced, the better, because we understand these processes better and we understand ourselves better. And that's why old people are chill,
I know,
right?
right? I never understood them. Like my mom and dad, or
They're
even
so
somebody
chill.
older, like, oh, relax.
Oh, relax. It'll be
Why are you
fine.
so chill?
No, this
Yeah.
is horrendous. This horrendous thing has happened. I lost my favorite pillowcase because it got mixed up in the wash. Yeah,
Yes.
chill out. It's fine. Oh, but
Yeah. Chill out.
this friendship is going away, and like, oh my God, I'm never gonna find another friend like that again. Yeah, you will. It's
Oh my God.
fine.
Yes.
Like, chill out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And better yet, you enjoy your own company.
Yeah.
All these
Yeah.
friends are just there to,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's a wonderful process. It is a beautiful, beautiful thing to go through heartache. Not in the moment, not while you're going through it, but it is a
No, definitely not in
beautiful,
the moment.
not in the moment, absolutely. But it, you know, you take it as an experience. You take it for what it is, which is life. That's just life. You know, when even when like the most horrendous things happen, and they shouldn't happen, and we shouldn't accept that horrendous things happen to us and be like, oh yeah, clearly this would have happened to me because I deserve it or whatever. No, that's not what I'm talking about. It's that point of acceptance that when something bad happens, you work. It's just work. All of this is just work. You allow yourself to be upset. You allow yourself to be sad. You allow yourself to grieve. You allow yourself to work with, try harder. You allow yourself to allow all these things to happen. And then one day you're going to wake up and that little kind of painful kind of ball in the back of your kind of head is a lot smaller and it doesn't hurt as much and it doesn't feel as bad. And you're going to be distracted by something else and you're going to look at something that makes you really happy. And all of a sudden, you're going to look back on that situation that was really, really painful to you. And you're going to be like, yeah, that was a painful situation, wasn't it? I learned a lot. And then you move on. And that's what we do.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who get stuck, and especially people who get stuck on anger, because it's such a difficult thing to break out of, right? Because this was a really unfair thing to have happened.
Unfair.
And why
Unfairness.
did this
Yeah.
have to happen to me? And I'm going to be angry about this. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life being angry about this unfair thing that happened to me because it shouldn't have happened to me. Yes, it shouldn't have happened to you. Of course it shouldn't have happened to you. But it did, right? It did. And you deal with it. And then because only you deal with it and you get through it. It's really that simple. So if you break down everything and really look at every single loss in your life, and every single unfair situation and every single bad thing that's ever happened to you, you will see that you've already gotten through. You've gotten through all this shit. Like you've gotten through your first heartbreak. Likely you're not with your first boyfriend or girlfriend anymore, okay? That broke up at some point from when you were like 13 and your first little peck on the cheek. You're probably not with that person anymore. So you got through that heartbreak. Why shouldn't you get through this one? You got through the first time you were rejected in a job that you really wanted, but thank God you don't have that job now because you have a much better one now. So life is so hard, but it's really easy. When we just allow ourselves to look at the big picture and, channel our inner old person who doesn't give shit anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is why I love what I do.
Yeah.
This is very therapeutic for me.
Mm.
Every therapist must have a therapist,
Yes.
right? So
Correct.
talking to every different people, you guys each are like my coach, my mentor, my therapy, my friend. I love it.
Yeah.
Again, this is like, okay, Nicolette, you this you love talking. This is what I tell myself. You can connect.
Yeah.
So yes,
Yeah, it's a pleasure. And
persevere.
yeah,
Becoming a podcast host was a natural extension of my second act. And after spending 15 years in the corporate world, I've transitioned to helping individuals overcome challenges like navigating tough relationships, career burnout, and aligning their mission with their soul's calling. By certifying as an RTT hypnotherapist and a lifestyle coach, I've made it my mission to empower people to recreate the life they deserve and building a supportive community through my podcast. Now, let me ask, are you facing challenges like struggling to reprogram your mind to attract wealth, weight issues that feel like a constant yo-yo, insomnia or restless nights from daily worries, or just a lack of confidence in public speaking? If the answer is yes, visit www.thenickyarsholisticlifestyle.com and grab a free hypnosis audio of these common struggles. It's a sneak peek into how my coaching works. Are you feeling shy? Don't be, because I'm as real as it gets. Let's connect on Instagram and LinkedIn and start your transformation today.
you persevere. And that's why I do love talking about, very specifically about my experiences, because listening can be just as therapeutic. So, hopefully your listeners kind of get a little bit of therapy out of it as well, but that's the goal, right? So yeah, because what I find is that we don't talk to each other anymore. We don't tend to have the intense conversations unless it's, specifically scheduled out and planned out, and this is what we're going to talk about. But with our friends and family, very often we become so isolated and we become so alone because it's a very lonely society that we live in. So what I go back to here is kind of the tribal culture that I grew up in. It was a very small tribe. It's called the Gadi people, and it's a very tribal structure. So because there was no TV, there was no electricity even, what you did was you sat around a fire and you told each other stories. And that's what you do, right? That is how humanity is supposed to live. That's what we're supposed to do every day. We're supposed to sit there by the fire, surrounded by our loved ones, and tell each other stories and talk to each other. The fact that we don't have this in modern life, that everybody goes home to their own little apartment and their own little cave, and then scrolls through Instagram and doesn't actually really ever talk.
Thinking that, oh, this girl, this guy probably is living their best lives.
Exactly.
And here I am feeling miserable. I'm in my
Exactly.
little apartment.
Exactly. And that is not how humanity is supposed to live. That's not how we have been living for 99% of human history. That is not what our brains are structured to do. We're social animals. We are supposed, it is literally illegal to keep some social animals. You cannot keep just one horse. It's not allowed. It's illegal because horses are social creatures who need to live in a herd. So why are we living like that? Like, if this was actually a zoo, then that would be cruel. So you're not allowed to keep animals whose evolution prescribes for them to be in a tribe, in a group of people, surrounded by family and by friends and by community, to keep us isolated in our tiny little boxes. That's cruel. So to kind of reopen yourself to that sense of community. And these avenues, like what you're doing, is fantastic. And that's just really, really helpful and really healthy and really good, because you're doing exactly that work, right? You are creating community. You are speaking. You are, exactly like you said, it is like therapy, because you're opening yourself up to being vulnerable and to being, it's not easy to be heard. It's not easy to put yourself out there to think that you should be heard, which of course you should be. So yeah, it's a good thing that you're doing. And thank you for letting me be a part of it. Absolutely. It's a pleasure.
No, thank you. Thank you for giving me that, sharing your message and giving me that reminder that, okay, I am not alone. So that it can get alone. It can feel alone, lonely for me because, again, this is online, but then you're connecting to people like every single day. So right now, like again with you, I just moved back to my, okay, now when you said about the courses, I was reminded of myself because I was living in Kuala Lumpur the last, after that job. So the last 7 months when I was let go, I was traveling back and forth to my parents. And then I was contemplating whether I should move back because right there, I live by myself. My sister's in the same city, but she's married.
Yeah.
So, the
Yeah.
dynamics, it's going to be different. And so I was like, maybe I should go back. And after thinking about it, I decided to, you know what? My I should come back and just be with them. So I made a big ass decision. I actually went to the States in September and I wanted to see like that's a different part. Like,
Mhm.
so the setting is different. If you've seen some of my podcast, it's different now. So I'm trying to make it work. The transition period is, I'm not going to say it's super easy because humans, we are all resistant to change. And like you said, but we're also social creatures. It's just one of those things that I need to balance. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I love that. Okay. What is your creative process now onto your work?
So I have several different processes. It depends on what I'm working on. So if it's a commission, like if it's a script commission, say the Earth Song novel adaptation, that was a commission. So I had a very clear structure of what the company needed me to do, and they gave me directions, and I just very not formulaic because that's the wrong word, but in a very kind of professional approach. So I always use the analogy of a carpenter. So you give a carpenter a pile of wood and they know exactly how they can turn it into a table, right? It's because that's your job, that's your profession, that's what you do. So that's a very structured and clear approach when I have that approach. And that'll be more about kind of like, yeah, commissions that come in where it's prescribed how the project has to go. And then with scripts and screenplays and stories that I write, the industry lingo is on spec. So that doesn't have like a production company attached that I'm just writing for myself and then we'll try to sell or bring out into the world. Those stories are very kind of, I let them kind of, before I sit down to write them, I kind of just let them simmer on the inside. And then when I feel it's, oh, I know the story I want to tell here, I'll sit down and will write it very, very quickly. So it takes me about between 24 and 72 hours to write a script because the work kind of gets done subconsciously and it just kind of bubbles up. And then I'm like, okay, this thing it's been baking in the oven for a while. It's ready to come out. And then I just sit down and write it down. And with poetry and with kind of more free form writing, it's very different again in that I'll just kind of jot something down really only when inspiration kind of hits. So like I always have a notebook with me. I always carry like writing implements with me. So when I think of something that I want to talk about, or when I think of a realization that I've just had, or when I think about, a kind of a melodic phrase pops into my head that I think needs to get out there, I'll write that down. And that's how kind of my poetry is a very spur of the moment thing. So that would be my process. I think without professionalism, I think without really understanding your craft, you'll find it very, or I would find it very difficult to write at all. So yeah, really understanding what you want to do when you sit down to actually get this project out of you, that would be kind of the most important thing for me when it comes to creative stuff.
I love it.
Yeah.
Now I have this question burning. What is the difference between novel and a screenplay? I mean, it's a very,
So yeah, no, that's a good question. So in a novel you have to, like, obviously formatting wise, the screenplay is very different because you have to put in like it has to be a very specific format so that the rest of the film crew can read it and get all the information that they need out of it. So just from a very technical aspect, a film script is an instruction manual for a film crew to get a film made. So it's a very different thing. In a novel, you'd have to write everything. You have to describe everything. You have to, the inner world, what they're wearing, what the room looks like, all of those details. In a screenplay, they shouldn't even be there. Like, you shouldn't describe the actor's thoughts, because that's the actor's job to have those thoughts and then to display them on their faces. And so that's why it's like it's a very kind of slimmed down version of the story, I always think, which is why it's so, for me at least, it's so easy to write very, very quickly, because I literally only need to put onto the page what I will be seeing on screen, plus giving enough kind of emotional weight to what's being said and what's being done, so that the actors and the director and everybody else will have enough information to be able to emotionally carry what needs to be done. So it is like, it's not an it is a professional, like, it is a craft. It's something that you really do have to understand, the ins and outs of, to be able to write a good screenplay. I think your first screenplay is never going to be good.
Anything first is never
Yeah.
gonna be good. Like
So
I
yeah,
suck at my first podcast.
exactly. You have to learn. It's a craft. It's a professional craft that you really have to understand to be able to be good at. That's why I write a lot. I try to write. This year's been a bit low, but I try to write at least 6, 7 screenplays per year, just to kind of keep myself practice.
Amazing. So, what is your advice to those people trying to venture into the film industry?
Yeah, yeah, into the film, yeah,
Screenwriting. Yeah,
into screenwriting, into the
yeah,
film
into the
industry.
film. Yeah.
Just do it. Just do it. Educate yourself. Educate. The wonderful thing about screenwriting, or about writing in general, is that you don't need to buy any expensive equipment. You need to get a camera. You don't need to get sound equipment. You can just sit down and write. So do it, and then do it again, and then do it some more, and just practice and practice and practice. Read every screenplay you can possibly get your hands on, even when they're really, really shit, especially when they're really shit, because they're going to teach you several lessons. Watch films with intention. Every
Oh,
time
I
you
love
feel,
that.
time you feel you're having an emotion while you're watching a film, whatever that emotion is, even if it's disgust with how shit the film is, pause it and ask yourself the question, why? Why did I just feel this? Why? What had happened with those characters up until this moment to make me feel sad now that this character is dead or whatever, or that they got their heart broken or whatever? How did the writer create that emotion in me? Because that's what writers are supposed to do. They're supposed to create emotion in the audience, right? That's what we're supposed to do. So when whenever you watch something and you feel something, pause it to understand why you're feeling the thing, and analyze what has led up to this emotion. And that will teach you a lot about how to create emotion. And that goes for all kinds of writing. That goes for novel writing, short story, screenplays, whatever it is that you're writing. When you've come to a point where something has been created in you, why? How? That's what it's.
Get into the business of asking and knowing, like, why is it evoking certain things? Like, why do you feel this way? And also, I think in that moment, you're also in the process of getting to know your essence, or what is it that you're trying to bring to surface in your, because it's your trademark, right? Whatever that you produce is your trademark. So why do you feel strongly about this and not this? And how did the previous screenwriters write in this sense? And I don't really agree with how he or she has done it, and maybe I could use some of this technique into mine. I actually never thought of it this way. Maybe I start infusing it to my own craft
Yeah.
to make it my own.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I
Every
love that.
time, like, it's for you, but like when you're listening to a podcast and you feel something and you're like, okay, how did the conversation get there? How did they steer the conversation to this point? Is like, it's such a helpful tool in any kind of approach, to pause whenever you feel something, and to think, how did I get here? How am I in this moment? Is a very powerful tool, I think, for pretty much everything.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Ronika. That was the universe talking through you to me as well. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna pivot to a self-worth question, and the question for you, I think we did talk about this, but then let's maybe dive a little deeper on this. Self-discovery is a journey that varies for each person. what are some practical steps individuals can take to embark on this path and learn more about themselves?
Okay, I love this question. So good. When you sit by yourself, metaphorically, or maybe actually completely naked, and you literally just sit in complete silence with yourself, that's a very uncomfortable thing for most people. And the challenge that I pose, the challenge that I pose to everyone, and the challenge that I pose to myself continuously is to do that and then unconditionally, completely and utterly, loudly, relentlessly love yourself for 10 seconds. Just 10 seconds. Sit with yourself in silence and love yourself as if you were a stranger, because we love strangers much more easily than we love ourselves. So pretend you are just a really kind, wonderful person who should be loved, and sit there for 10 seconds and shower and bathe yourself and just completely immerse yourself. Let the love soak into every single cell, into every single particle of your existence. Just completely soak it in.
Excuse.
Bless you. And
Thank you.
and that's such a challenge. So, but when we do that, and the first time we do it, it's so difficult, right? It is. Oh my God, it's impossible. It's so difficult. And 10 seconds is a long time to really know yourself. You're going to discover, and again, when after 4 seconds, your brain's going to go into that direction, analyze that. Analyze why. Analyze where it went. Specifically, where did it go to? What was the thought that popped into your head? Was it, oh, this is stupid? Why? Why is it stupid? Because you're not lovable? Why? Why is it stupid? I feel naked. Why do you feel naked? Why do you feel naked? Or, God, I'm bored. Why are you bored? Are you that boring? Is the act of self-love so boring to you that you cannot, are you that boring of a person you can't spend 10 seconds with yourself? I don't think so. And then the next day, make it 20 seconds. The next day, make it a minute. The next day, make it 10 minutes to meditate with yourself. Don't pretend you don't have 10 minutes for yourself. Bullshit. Bullshit. You have 10 minutes for yourself. You have 2 hours to scroll through Instagram. Honey, you got 10 minutes. Okay. You got 10 minutes for yourself to love yourself. Okay. So that's the exercise that I think I found most challenging, just for myself, but it has taught me a lot, especially with the added kind of thing of analyzing where my brain is trying to take me off to whenever it's trying to take me off to somewhere. Where is it going? Why am I going in that direction? Why am I using this time that I've carved out for myself to again kind of go into the self-loathing kind of thing of, oh, this is stupid and you're stupid and you're just a stupid person and this is just ridiculous and you shouldn't be wasting time like this. Exactly. Okay, let's analyze this. Let's break it down. Why am I thinking these thoughts? Why are they coming into my head? I know exactly why they're coming into my head, because my self-worth is damaged. Because of course it is. Duh. So to really find self-worth is to make sure that you know, that you love yourself, that you physically, and it's a physical action as much as it is a soulful and emotional one, because your actual physical brain structure, the neurons that are in here, are not used to loving yourself. In most cases, people don't have enough self-worth and don't have enough self-love and don't have enough don't spend enough time with themselves. So it's a process, and it's an actual exercise. I would go so far as to call it a physical exercise to actually physically create the neural pathways that will allow self-love and self-worth to exist inside your brain structure, inside the actual gray matter that's sitting in here. Those pathways cannot exist if you do not create them. So that's what you have to do.
You're my therapist for today. I love it. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
What is your heart's greatest wish?
My heart's greatest wish.
Your heart's greatest wish.
Pretty happy, actually. I'm pretty happy with my life. I'm happy with my career. I'm happy with who I am. I'm happy with, you know, uh, I'd like to settle down now. I think I've been traveling a lot. So I've spent the last few years traveling all over, living in all sorts of different places. I've lived all over kind of Europe in the last few years. So if I had like a physical wish, I'd like to settle down and like find a home that I'm gonna be in for the rest of my life. But I'm gonna let the universe kind of handle that. I'm gonna like just sit here in my happiness, and whenever that comes along, um I'll know I've arrived. So yeah, no, I'm actually
Wow.
pretty happy. Like I don't have anything.
I
You
love
know, $1
that.
million in the bank, of course. Like $1 million
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
bank.
yeah,
Always,
but
that is never gonna
always, yeah.
be a thing that I don't want.
Never
But
gonna
I'm
say
not
no.
never gonna say no. But I'm not actually motivated by money. I don't. If you give me the choice of doing something just because it's gonna make me rich, no, I don't give a shit. Actually, I don't really care. So you know that I would never go chase. I'm never going to chase $1 million. I'm going to chase the happiness and the healthiness. But it'll be nice. It'll be nice. And the $1 million finally appear.
I love that. Meaning you're so content and you're just basking in your
Yeah,
bliss, in your joy, in your peace, and that's what I think you've arrived. To be
fine.
honest,
Like I'm
yeah, you
happy.
have arrived.
So, yeah, no, it's been a journey to get here. Yeah,
A lot of people are learning from you.
I hope so.
So, okay, if you could create a quote right now for you to lead to the audience listening and the world is your legacy, what would it be?
Work, work your way to accept.
Mm-hmm.
You just do the work all the way until the moment you find acceptance. And that's the only thing that is going to get you to this kind of a blissful, happy state is that you have accepted um, the bad things, you have embraced the good things, you make the changes when you want to make the changes. But in the end, you will accept. And acceptance doesn't, accept, I have to actually say that. Acceptance does not mean listlessness or not taking action when you don't want to accept something. Oh, yeah, take action. When you don't want to accept something, you change it. But
Oh, yeah.
when you've come to a place where you don't feel like, I want to change this, I want to change this, I want to change this, that's when you really kind of reach acceptance of the bad things and joy in the good things.
And usually those things come from changing yourself
They come from
by
accepting yourself.
accepting.
Yeah, they come from
Exactly.
accepting yourself and who you are and loving yourself and sitting there naked for 10 seconds and loving yourself. That's very different. So yeah, that's what I would say.
We came full circle
Yeah, we did.
to substantiate your self-worth question. Wow, thank you. So, Ronika, how can people reach out to you?
So my website is ronikamerl.com, where you can find contact details. I am on Instagram, but I'm not there a lot. So that's also, it's just my name. If people just Google me, my name is pretty unique, thank God. So I'm easily findable and people can reach out to me for everything. I love to chat. I love especially when people reach out to me if they have a question about how to write their story. Of course, that's what I do for a living. But also just to reach out to me if they need to talk or need to chat, or if they have a question about, I'm in this difficult situation. How can I get through? I'm so, so, so happy when people do that. And a lot of people do actually reach out to me with like, something bad has happened to me. I don't know what to do. Can I talk to you? So I'm always super, super happy to do that. Or, buy my books and be amazed of how beautiful my poetry is. That's also a way
I
to
love that.
connect.
So, where can
Give me money.
yeah, where can we get your books?
They're all on Amazon.
Amazon?
Yeah, they're all on Amazon. I have some non fiction books as well. I have like textbooks for screenwriters and stuff. So if anybody's kind of interested in the methodology of screenwriting that I kind of employ, that is also available.
Wow.
So yeah. But again, just reach out. Don't be a stranger. I'm always happy to talk and I'm always happy to help.
Wow. Well, thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you for that
Thank you so much. This has been such a wonderful conversation. Thank you.
No, thank you for sharing your story to me and to all of our listeners that is gonna hear this when this is aired.
Thank you.
Yeah. And for closing, there you have it, everyone. You heard it straight from the source. Before we wrap up, I want to thank you. I want to personally thank you, Ronika, for the incredible work you're doing for the world. Despite the challenges, you continue to push forward, paving the way for those that will follow in your footsteps. Your dedication is truly inspiring.
Yeah. Thank
For our listeners, this has been that podcast with that provocative title, You're Worthless. Read that again. The juxtaposition of your very soul. If you've ever found yourself feeling worthless, you're not alone. But more importantly, ask yourself a deeper question. If I'm worthless, then why am I here? Truth is, your soul chose to be here energetically, coming all the way from the ethers. And for that reason alone, you are worthy and you are enough. And with that, this is Ronika Merl, our guest of the day, and I'm Nick Nyaras, your host, signing off. Thank you, Ronika, for your time.
you so much.